Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome back again to our ongoing series on the glories of our beloved Sri Vrindavan Dhama. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pacharine, Nivishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatade Shatarni. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, as I posted on my Facebook page recently, I'm seeking everyone's blessings to give a series of lectures on Srila Rupa Goswami's relationship with his istha-deva, his beloved deity of Govinda-dev. This little mini-series should take us up to his disappearance day, Rupa Goswami's disappearance day, on August 19th. There'll be a lot of new nectar. I mean, I've spoken on Srila Rupa Goswami and his beloved deity, Govindaji, a number of times, but there's going to be a lot of new nectar. And I wanted to stress that it's all bona fide. Much of it coming from our new opportunity in being able to research in the prestigious nearby Vrindavan Research Institute, which I spoke about the other day, which has a library of 32,000 scriptures, and many of them are by our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas. On top of that, whatever pastimes, verses, and details we will share with you, we've fact-checked and received approval from a member of the GBC Shastrik Committee, my good friend, namely Hari Parshad Das, who's very expert in Sanskrit and the history, etc. And of course, we're very much depending on the blessings of Srila Prabhupada. So, invoking auspiciousness, let us first properly glorify Srila Rupa Goswami. Sujartam mama dehasya jala shnanam karomyaham Shri Rupa Vakshuda Shanam Svatmana Pari Sudaye. Quote, for purification of my physical body, I bathe regularly using water. However, for the complete purification of myself and my existence, I bathe in the nectar words of Sri Rupa Goswami. That beautiful verse was composed by Hari Parshad Prabhu. And regarding Govinda-dev, in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 119, we hear from Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. He writes, Etina Thakura Ghuriyake, Kariya Chena Atmashat, Etinera Chana Bhandon, Tinamora Nata. He writes, these three deities of Vrindavan, Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinath, have absorbed the heart and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. And in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we hear from Srila Rupa Goswami a very beautiful description of Govinda-dev, or as is often known as Govindaji, a very affectionate name, Govindaji. There, Sri Rupa Goswami writes about his istha-deva. In a forest of desire trees, known as Vrindavan, is a golden mansion, and in its midst is a jeweled throne at the place called Yogapith. Seated thereupon is Shri Govinda-deva, a veritable Cupid incarnate. He is served there as king, bedecked with divine clothes, ornaments, and other paraphernalia, served incessantly by thousands of devotees. So beautiful, from the heart of Rupa Goswami. We also know Lord Brahma glorified Govinda-dev, Govindaji, the very beginning of creation. In his Brahma Samhita, after receiving Vedic knowledge from Govinda, he said famously, Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Now, as we've heard in previous lectures, Govindaji was carved 5,000 years ago under the direction of Brajranaba, who was the great-grandson of Krishna. That was done also under the direction, or you could say the supervision, of Uttara, the mother of Maharaj Parikshit. But like many of the original Vrindavan deities, Govindaji was lost with the progress of time, And it was our beloved Srila Rupa Goswami who eventually discovered Govindaji in Vrindavan 500 years ago. And that particular pastime, how he discovered Govinda-dev, I'd like to share with you today with lots of nectar details. And the pastime actually begins in Mathura, which of course is very close to Vrindavan Dhama. According to local Brajbasi narrations, around 500 years ago, Srila Sanatana Goswami and Srila Rupa Goswami used to beg prasadam from Sat Graha. Sat Graha. It means the houses of 7 Brahmin families. And after begging, Rupa Goswami, his habit was that he would go on Vrindavan Parikrama. He'd walk to Vrindavan. He'd go on Vrindavan Parikrama. And it's stated that one reason he would do that was that he was always hankering for, always hoping to find his worshipable deity, Govinda-dev. We know that one of Lord Chaitanya's instructions to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan was to establish deity worship here in Vrindavan. And earlier on, of course, Srila Sanatana Goswami had found his worshipable deity, Madan Mohan. That was the first deity found in Vrindavan. And Rupa Goswami was always wondering, when the Lord of his heart, Govinda-dev, would make his appearance. So, one day, as he was doing Vrindavan Parikrama, he suddenly experienced great separation from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with whom he'd had so much association and received specific instructions. He just suddenly became overwhelmed with feelings of separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He thought to himself, quote, "For many years now, I have not seen Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have not even received any letters from him." Unquote. That's what he was thinking. So the acharyas say that at that time in history, there was a constant flow of letters back and forth from Jagannath Puri and Vrindavan. I thought that was really interesting. Even then, the Goswamis are just, Vrindavan's a jungle and they're coming and they're following the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, studying the revealed scriptures, establishing deity worship, finding the lost places of Krishna's pastimes. But even then, there was, according to the Acharya scholars, a constant flow of letters back and forth from Jagannath Puri, where Mahaprabhu was living, and Vrindavan. So on that particular day, Rupa Goswami, as he was feeling intense separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he stopped walking, and sitting underneath a big tree, he wrote the famous Pratam Chaitanya Ashtakam. It's a famous writing of poem, you could say, of Rupa Goswami. Pratam Chaitanya Ashtakam, which we actually find in his book Shtavamala. It's 8 verses, Ashtakam. He wrote it right then and there, as he was feeling separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 8 verses. My favorite, because we can all have favorites, my favorite of the 8 verses of this poem is the following, quote, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chants the Hare Krishna mantra in a loud voice, the holy name dancing on his tongue as he counts the number of recitations on a beautiful knotted string held in his effulgent hand. His eyes are large and his long arms bend down to his knees as he performs his pastimes. Will he ever again become visible before the path of my eyes? That last line is very relevant It goes, Sa Chaitanya Kim Me Ponar Api Drishor Yasyati Padam. Will Lord Chaitanya ever again become visible before the path of my eyes? So as Srila Rupa Goswami sat there, feeling intense separation from Mahaprabhu, a cowherd man named Govinda-das, who took care of Rupa Goswami's 500 cows, came to see him and was very sad to see that Rupa Goswami was literally crying in separation. Now it may come as a surprise to all of you that Srila Rupa Goswami had 500 cows. We always hear how renounced he was, even sleeping under a different tree every night. And that's all very true. But I read that in my research in the Institute here, Lord Chaitanya had instructed him in a letter that while he was in Vrindavan, he should be prepared to take care of the many renounced sages that lived there. Another instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a letter, that when Rupa Goswami was in Braj, he should take care of the many renounced sages that lived there. Therefore, he used some of the wealth that he had amassed previously in Ramakeli in the service of that Muslim ruler, Hussein Shah. We all know that pastime in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He had a boatload of gold coins and he used them in different ways. He left some for Sanatana Goswami so he could bribe the guards in the jail to escape, and different ways he used the money. But apparently he kept a number of those gold coins, brought them to Vrindavan, and using them provided, I was reading, a constant supply of milk to those sadhus. That's why he had the cows. Of course, he had other people taking care of the cows, but everyone considered those to be Rupa Goswami's cows, with which he served the Vaishnavas. Yukta Vairagya, using everything in Krishna's service. At that time in history, there was a Muslim emperor named Humayun, whose palace was in what we consider in modern day Delhi. And this particular emperor, actually his son later was Akbar. He's the father of Akbar. So this particular emperor, Humayun, he was very inspired hearing of the glories of Srila Rupa Goswami, because Delhi is not far from Vrindavan. And as such, he granted him permission that Rupa Goswami's cows could graze anywhere and everywhere around Braj. And he didn't have to pay any tax for that. Interesting note. Because, if you had your cows, you had a certain portion of land which you used, but this emperor said, Rupa Goswami, his 500 cows, they can go anywhere and everywhere, and he doesn't have to pay tax. This is the benefit of spending time in the Research Institute. We can find these letters and these particular facts, which is so much nectar, and I'm so happy to share with you. So anyway, when Govinda-das, this cowherd man, saw Rupa Goswami literally crying in a deep state of meditation and separation from Lord Chaitanya, he brought him out of his meditation by sharing with him what he felt might be some good news. So he said, Goswamiji, one of your go, meaning cows, one of your cows, because go means cow, one of your cows daily pours all of its milk on top of a nearby hill and continuously cries there for hours. I've seen this so many times. So hearing this, it's described, Rupa Goswami's meditation broke and he became ecstatic, suddenly realizing that Govinda-dev was about to appear to him. And how did he conclude this? It's very interesting. The Acharyas say, because in the Braj Bhasa language, go means cow, like it does in the Sanskrit language, but particularly we're speaking Braj Bhasa language here. Go means cow, and that by hearing that word, his Vinda, meaning his meditation on Lord Chaitanya was broken. So he concluded that very soon he would have darshan of Govinda, his worshipable deity, like that. He heard go, the word go, cow, and that broke his Vinda, his meditation on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he put those two words together, Govinda, and he took it to mean that I'm going to have darshan with my istha-deva, Govinda, very soon. Very interesting. So he was very blissful. Now I found a beautiful verse describing that very moment that he realized in that unusual way that he was going to have darshan with his Lord. It's a beautiful verse, and it comes from a Vaishnava scholar of several hundred years ago, very respected devotee. His name was Govardhan Bhatta Goswami. He wrote a book called Sri Rupa Sanatan Stotra, unpublished as yet. This is one of my desires, that there's so many books in that institute which are written by the Goswamis or Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that for whatever reason have never been published. They're sitting there in their original handwriting. So I'm hoping to serve the previous acharyas and to serve all Prabhupada and to serve all of you by getting the original copies, getting them verified, and scanning them, of course, for the future, but actually publishing them. Can you imagine? They're there. So I heard that some of the books have not been opened in 500 years. What a seva to our acharyas and to all of you. So Govardhan Bhatta Goswami's Sri Rupa Sanatan Stotra, where he glorifies Rupa and Sanatan in particular, verse 17 is pertinent here, where he describes the moment that Rupa Goswami, sitting there, realized he's going to have darshan, somehow or other, with Govinda-dev. And this is the verse. Quote, begging for alms in the houses of devotee brahmanas in Mathura, Sri Rupa Goswami, who was more humble than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree, sat under a tree while holding a clay pot and wearing a black woolen chadar on his shoulder. There he envisioned his beloved Govinda-dev while crying in happiness and singing beautiful songs about the pastimes of the Lord of Radhika. Wow. So that was the moment, and it's recorded by that wonderful devotee. So immediately, Srila Rupa Goswami made an announcement that all strong men and able boys of Vrindavan come to that particular hill that Govinda Das had indicated. And as soon as everyone arrived, they began digging with picks and shovels and bare hands. And bear in mind, there's a lot of boys, a lot of men there. On top of that hill, in a little hole that had been made by that cow pouring milk on that spot for who knows how long. Actually, it's written for years now, I remember, for years. And I was reading that the work progressed very quickly due to the muddy nature of the earth. For so many years, the milk's coming, as you can imagine, seeping down. So it wasn't hard dirt, rock, or anything like that. It was very soft, way, way down because of the milk. And in fact, in 3 Shastric references, I found that the villagers dug down 5 stories. You think of a building, right, going up. Think of the building going down. 5 stories down, they came to the top knot of Govinda-dev. I've been telling that fast time for years, and I was always thinking, they're digging a little bit, there's the top knot. 3 Shastric references. Govinda-dev was 5 stories down. It said, it's written, Panchapatala Bhugarbhashta. Panchapatala Bhugarbhashta, Panch, 5. Patala means a floor or a story down. Bhugarbhashta, situated in the earth, was Govinda. Wow. And with the news that Govindaji had been found, every Brajbasi in Vrindavan living at that time came running to what we call Yogapit. A Yogapit is anywhere where the Supreme Lord sits down or stands permanently. That's the actual definition of Yogapit. Anywhere where the Supreme Lord sits down or stands permanently. That's the proper Sanskrit definition of Yogapit. And it's also described that as soon as, Govindaji was taken out, all the cows in Vrindavan also came running to where the Yogapith was. And I was reading it, as they ran there, the sounds of their bells, big and small, filled the air of Braj. And upon arriving at that sacred spot, they all laid down together and cuddled in the soft dust of Braj. Now bear in mind, I'm having devotees help me with the Sanskrit and the Bengali. So, because all these books are in Sanskrit and Bengali. So these are the translations of devotee scholars who are helping. So this is how it was translated. They all laid down together and cuddled in the soft dust of Sri Vrindavan. So, now it's described that when Govinda-dev emerged from the 5 stories underground, he was completely brownish with the dust that had stuck on his body for so many centuries. And I even read that some stone particles were stuck to the lines in his hands and his feet. He has the lines there in his hands. There were some small particles of stone. And it's written that Sri Rupa Goswami was standing by the whole time, supporting himself with a stick, because he was shivering in great ecstasy, as his eyes flooded with tears and caused a large puddle to appear on the ground. And when Govinda-dev was finally completely out of that large hole, Rupa Goswami was the first one to offer full dandavats, prostrating himself on the ground. And then I read 3 dandas later. Now again, a danda is equal to 24 minutes. So meaning 3 dandas later, meaning 1 hour and 20 minutes later, Srila Sanatana Goswami arrived to greet Govinda-dev. And very soon other great souls came, like Sri Lokanath Goswami came, and Bhugarbha Goswami came, and they all came to take darshan of Govinda-dev, but to offer their congratulations to Rupa Goswami. He had been reunited with his Lord. And that's what we're also aspiring to do. The whole process of Krishna consciousness is to be reunited with our beloved Lord, Krishna, Radha and Krishna. So then, very quickly, Brahmini women, riding in palanquins, arrived from Mathura, carrying different types of puja articles. And then soon after, Chaturvedi Brahmanas also arrived from Mathura to chant mantras. This is how we glorify the Lord. We chant mantras. We chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, to reconnect. So these Chaturvedi Brahmanas, they were chanting their mantras. And it's written that Srila Sanatana Goswami had brought pots filled with water from the river Jamuna. Then combining that sacred water with the milk of Srila Rupa Goswami's 500 cows, they and all the Brajabasis, certain Brajabasis, held a very elaborate 4-hour-long Abhishek of Govindaji. That was new to me. I knew there was an Abhishek, but 4 hours, exactly 4 hours long Abhishek of Govindaji. And actually, those of you who are pujaris, you'll be interested to know that the whole procedure, as it was performed, is described by Srila Rupa Goswami in his book, Krishna Janma Titi Vidhi. I'm hoping to publish that book as well. Krishna Janma Titi Vidhi. The whole process of how they did that Abhishek. And it should be noted that some pujaris who have studied this book say that during this Abhishek ceremony, there's no mention of the blowing of conch shells. I thought that's interesting. They didn't blow any conch shells. And then I really went back to the institute and questioned and looked, and I found out that the reason was that when Akrura left Vrindavan with Krishna and Balaram on the chariot 5,000 years ago, he very loudly heralded the occasion by blowing in a conch shell. Oh, Krishna and Balaram are leaving Vrindavan for Mathura to fight with the wrestlers. So, in many of the Vrindavan temples, even today, there are no conch shells blown, for they only serve as a painful reminder that Krishna and Balaram left for Mathura and never came back. Of course, in our ISKCON temple, we do, and I believe in the Gaudiya Math temples as well. But if you visit the principal temples in Vrindavan, you won't hear the conch. What does it mean to the people of Braj? Krishna left, never came back. They don't blow conch shells. Interesting note. I also read that on one occasion, when everyone asked Rupa Goswami, so can you reveal to us the name of your deity? He replied as follows. This is so important, so nice. Rupa Goswami said, as the Lord appeared near to a cow, and it was indicated Vinda by a cow, go, and I was meditating on Gopal Gayatri while I was facing the sun, therefore he shall be known as Govinda, the Lord of Rupa. So again we hear the word Vinda, which we took previously to mean meditation. His meditation on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was broken, Vinda. But herein we find a second meaning of Vinda. It means, the Sanskrit translation means indicated. Previously we had the Brajabhasa language version of Vinda. Now we have the Sanskrit translation meaning indicated. So let's read that again, recite that again. As the Lord appeared near to a cow, Rupa says, and it was indicated Vinda by a cow, go, and I was meditating on Gopal Gayatri while I was facing the sun, therefore he shall be known as Govinda, the Lord of Rupa. Referring back again to that moment that he realized, I'm going to have darshan of my Govindaji. A little technical, but really, really interesting. And it's also written in Bhakti Ratnakara's second wave that all the saints and the Brajavasis, on seeing Govindaji for the first time, they all chanted together, Shri Govinda Prakata Hoila Rupa Dware. This is very important. They're all there, and they're having darshan for the first time of Govinda-dev. Rupa Goswami's there in ecstasy. He's given the name of his deity and explained why. Everyone spontaneously, they chanted, Shri Govinda Prakata Hoila Rupa Dware. Quote, Shri Govinda appeared in this world through the via medium agency of Srila Rupa Goswami. Wow. Shri Govinda Prakata Hoila Rupa Dware. Shri Govinda appeared in this world through the via medium, the agency of Srila Rupa Goswami. This is nectar. So that evening, I was reading, Srila Rupa Goswami offered Govindaji tilak in a grand ceremony. Then he offered him different types of colored powders, and then decorated his face with various kinds of makara china. Makara china. What's makara china? Makara china are designs of fish, that we paint on our deities. Or now we know to paint on our deities. Little fish on their faces, on their hands and arms and feet. This is makara china. And just why did Rupa Goswami offer colorful powders to Sri Govindaji on that specific day? This is so interesting. Because Govindaji appeared on Vasant Panchami, the first day of spring, when all the Brajavasis started playing Holi. So Srila Rupa Goswami also composed a beautiful song for Vasant Panchami. He composed a beautiful song. And we find that song in his book Stavamala. And it begins like this: Jaya Jaya Sundara Nanda Kumar Shoraba Shankata Vrindavana Vihita Vashanta Vihara. Translation: O handsome son of Nanda, O Lord who enjoys Vashanta, springtime pastimes in the fragrant forest of Vrindavan. All glories to you, all glories to you. And then further in that song, glorifying springtime, wherein he, the first day he found his beloved deity, further along in that song he writes very nicely, O Lord, whose curling hair is splendid with many new flower buds. O Lord, anointed by loving friends with kumkum and powdered camphor. O Lord, the very gentle smile shining on whose lips is gazed by your friends. O Lord, whose restless sidelong glances arouse the amorous desires of Sri Radha. O Lord, whose jewel necklace moves with your graceful dancing and that it chants the entire world. O friend of the devotees, O Lord, whose incarnations enjoy pastimes in Sanatana Goswami's heart. O handsome son of Nanda, O Lord, who enjoys springtime pastimes in the fragrant forest of Vrindavan. O glories to you, O glories to you. Hare Krishna. So that, dear Prabhus, is a sacred pastime of Srila Rupa Goswami, finding Govinda-dev, known affectionately as Govindaji, at that special place now known as Yogapith in Vrindavan. And Srila Narahari Chakravarti writes in Bhakti Ratnakara, again the second wave, Shri Vigraha Shri Govinda Brajendra Kumar Sadyogapite Stite Shastre E Prachara. Shri Vigraha Shri Govinda Brajendra Kumar Sadyogapite Stite Shastre E Prachara. He writes, in the scriptures it's mentioned that the deity of the son of Nanda Maharaj, Shri Govinda, is eternally situated at Yogapith. Wow. So we'll finish with two verses today. The first is by Shripad Shankaracharya. Interesting. Shripad Shankaracharya. In his very famous Govinda Ashtakam. We have lots of Ashtakams, so this is his Govinda Ashtakam. And it's verse 4. And it was utilized by Rupa Goswami, actually. He would quote this verse sometimes, I read, because it's a very beautiful description of his deity. So in the Govinda Ashtakam we find verse number 4. Worship Govinda, who is supreme bliss, who is the protector of the world, who made his advent in the world as Gopal through his Leela, who is the protector of the race of Yadavas and cows, who made the cowherd people happy by lifting up through his Leela the Govardhan mountain, where the gopis used to play, whose name Govinda is uttered clearly by the cows or scriptures, or cows and scriptures, who has many names and who is beyond the reach of the ignorant. And the second prayer that we'll finish today is by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. He writes at the end of his illustrious Mukta Charita, Adadhanas Trinam Dhantair Idam Yache Puna Puna Shrimad Rupa Padam Bhoja Duli Shaim Janma Janmani. He writes, quote, placing a straw between my teeth, I pray again and again, birth after birth, may I be the dust at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami. So with those words, we will finish today. Raghunath Das Goswami. We've heard so much nectar. I'm very happy to have this service. I'm researching. I don't know how I got that service. They've just opened up everything to us, and I'm going to try to facilitate them and help them develop that project as well. So if any of you have any ideas how to do that, how to preserve these scriptures, it's all new to me. I'm going to have to look into it. Maybe contact some museums and find out how they preserve this paper and protect it. I know that sometimes you can put them in certain glass boxes with the humidity is controlled, the temperature is controlled, whatever. We'll research that. And just to help them, because nothing much has happened there in a lot of years. So this is a very special opportunity. Let's do it together. So thank you, everyone. And we have more classes now, as I mentioned. This is a series on Rupa Goswami and his service and relationship with this beloved Govinda-dev. So see you in a couple of days with part 2 in the series. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, who is actually revealing all of this to us and giving us all these wonderful services. Hare Krishna. Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Shri Govinda-dev ki, Shri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada ki, all our acharyas ki, back to Godhead ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Maya Pradama ki, Gokul Vrindavan Dham ki, looking out my window now, Goloka Vrindavan Dham ki, back to Godhead, and share these teachings with the whole world, inspire people to take up the process of Krishna consciousness as Srila Prabhupada has taught it to us, and take them all back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Jai. Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki.